This is the Impressions Exchange podcast.
Impressions Xchange podcast,
where all topics impacting the graphic imaging and printing industry are addressed via in-depth news coverage, analysis, and timely interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Impressions Exchange podcast. On this episode, I am pleased to be joined by Mark Pomerantz, Sales and Marketing Director of Xeikon North America. We talk about Xeikon's participation in the upcoming Printing United Expo, how convergence plays a role in a modern printing industry, some key market trends and challenges, and how sustainability fits into the picture. We also get into digital embellishments and the rising demand for brand protection and security, why paper-based flexible packaging is super exciting, and why digital heat transfer for the promotional and industrial segments is such a game changer. So Mark, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Ashley. Great to be here. Always enjoy speaking with you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Of course. Yeah, me as well. I'm happy to have you here. So I can't even believe it, but we are only a few weeks away from Printing United Expo in Vegas. It's coming fast and furious. So I kind of wanted to start out talking about, Xeikon and Printing United Expo. So, can you kind of talk about Xeikon's presence at this year's expo and how that aligns with your overall strategy and goals?
Sure. And it's a great question because we've always believed in the concept that was Printing United was put together for regarding convergence. And whether by design or good fortune, the Xeikon digital press platforms have always had the capabilities to be very flexible into different types of applications, in many cases, very different than what some of the other digital press platforms could do. So I think we kind of walked into the convergence story just by being there with our technology. But once the event was started in, I think 2019 was the first one, we signed up early, and we think it's a great concept, having all of these different types of applications under one roof. And it not only brings together a lot of people from these various segments, but people who are looking to get into adjacent segments of business, expand their business. And that's something that we really focus on with our customer base. So this year at Printing United, we will have the largest booth we've had thus far over the various shows. We're bringing one of our newest presses, our TX500 Titan press. So it'll be a North America debut. We have our partnership with Kurz, and that will be on display in the booth. So we're really excited about it, and we just believe it's a great platform for us to work with the various business segments that are looking to either expand offerings within their current business or move into other business opportunities. And that's kind of the Xeikon sweet spot, or people who are looking to do things like that.
Great. Yeah. So I do want to come back to, in a little bit, we'll come back to your partnership with Kurz and some of the other stuff. But I want to stick to the convergence topic. And I love that you said that you kind of walked into this convergence story and, how Xeikon's flexible. So can you talk about that? How does Xeikon technology facilitate that transition for companies that want to move into other markets or diversify their applications?
Yeah, so the Xeikon technology has a couple of things, and that's why I use the term kind of walked in, because I'd like to think we were that smart 30 years ago, but nobody had that kind of crystal ball, right? But there's a couple of key elements within the core technology, or primary core technology, right? We don't have just one anymore, but for our dry toner technology, the fact that it is dry toner sets it apart in the areas of food safety, environmental sustainability, no VOCs, no PFAs, things like that we were fortunate enough to develop that from an early time, and our formulation allows us to really put an emphasis on that today. We also, because we're roll-fed press only, and we're a true rotary, we don't use anything that limits us in how long we can print or the length of the print. That has put us into market applications like wall deco, so even in direct mail printing, when someone has to do a self mailer and it's longer than what the digital press offers, and they might have to push that back to offset. there's a few things like that that our fundamental technologies have allowed us to do. People have recognized us for that. And when they have enough center of gravity in any of these niches, or if that's a dedicated business like Waldeco might be, for example, Xeikon tends to stand out because we have some built-in capabilities that other platforms don't. Doesn't mean it's not a better or not better thing. It's just a matter of being different and unique. And so that's allowed us, I think, to play a strong role in convergence, because I can remember earlier days in digital. Someone would buy one press, whatever it was in the earlier days, and then they would try and put everything on that one press. And then you get to the point where it kept growing and growing, and all of a sudden you realize, this is a good press, but for this type of application, it's not great. I need something different to do that. So we used to have a term that Xeikon was your best second digital press, because as people grew in their digital business, they realized that there were some things they needed to do differently than where they had started. So I think that's the kind of the path when I say we've walked into it. Our core technology allows us to do that. And so that's been very fortunate for us. The challenge as an organization is to try and recognize these trends and applications, right? And then, kind of move the focus a little bit in either direction.
Well, that was a perfect segue, because I do want to talk about trends. And, obviously market trends affect, where people are moving or spending their time, or the types of applications that people are looking for. So can you talk about maybe some of the key trends? And let's, look at the label and package printing market. So what are some of those key trends that people should be aware of? And, maybe how Xeikon fits into those trends.
Yeah, and I think I would start by saying that at a really high level, if you look at print, you've got one side of the aisle, so to speak, is high volume, can be digital, can be static, but high volume print that's becoming more short run oriented and more variable oriented. But it's still, I don't want to say the word commodity, but it's volume, it's price based, it's how efficient you can really be to produce lots of stuff in digital. And then on the other side, there's high value, I would call it, right? Where it's more tactile. It has a different look. It has embellishments. It's a higher quality on a unique substrate. It's some type of combination of something. It requires instead of replacing offset, maybe you have to replace screen printing or dye sublimation. So I would answer that question by saying, of those two areas, the super high volume, super efficient, produce at the lowest cost, try and improve the operational efficiencies of companies. It's a great thing, but it's not really where we're aimed at, right? We play a little bit there, but in scale, not really. That's the water-based inkjet market and so on, right? So that's kind of a different market. We play more in the high value embellishment, unique products. So we see what we like about being on that side of the business segment is that those are products that our customers can earn more money from. Generally speaking, they can charge more. It should be a little higher margin. And again, it lends itself to some of the unique capabilities that we have. So when we look at the trends, we're looking at trends for higher value luxury print. I don't know who it was, but whoever said print is a luxury item now, it might have been at an Inkjet Summit or one of those. I agree with that, but not all print, of course, but certain print can be more like a luxury item that people are willing to pay more. And it seems to me the newer generation of both consumers and print buyers are kind of catching on to this, maybe even leading it. So what we see a lot of trends, but those are the trends we feel like we can address, and those are the ones that we're aimed at.
Right. Yeah. And I do recall also what you mentioned about the luxury print being talked about. And I think that it's, when you're trying to appeal to the end user, having that kind of premium feeling product with embellishments or some type of tactile feel, it stands out, among, on shelf or wherever the product is. And so having that premium type of print has an impact.
Yes, absolutely. And the challenge has been, so a lot of those, the finished product of what we just talked about has been around for a long time, right? Hot stamping and all of that. But the process to do it
Right.
is, it's been very manual, different machines, sometimes very old, even using letterpress and things like that. So now digital is is maturing enough where it's taking over a lot of those capabilities and thus allowing it to be kind of enabled for everybody, right? And in short run version and high quality version, et cetera. So that's when we talk about our partnership with Kurz, that's really right in the middle of what we're talking about, because it allows a smooth one pass inline process with all of the advantages you get from digital, but none of the disadvantages that you had from the manual processes that it took, previously to do that. So we're really excited about the space in general. And then we feel like we have a couple of unique things to bring to market to help people be successful in those applications.
Right, right. So let's talk about that actually. You've mentioned your partnership with Kurz. So for anyone listening that might not be familiar with your partnership or might not be familiar, the applications, we've talked about like brand protection and security and that kind of space. So can you talk about that?
Sure, absolutely. So we've been working together with Kurz for a while. So the objective was twofold, was really number one is to have a simpler process for the replication of what was 2D hot stamping, which is still a majority of what has been done in that type of application. And of course, it's been around on sheet fed or cut sheet digital presses as well, but there's some it works, but there's some challenges and limitations like with any given technology in that space. What we've been able to do together with Kurz is do it as a single pass, so the registration is aligned perfectly, and it also then allowed us to be very, very finite on where we put metal and how much. So there's two aspects of it. There's one, we can now really create beautiful wine labels, for example, in a single pass with hot stamping. So people don't need two different machines where something can go wrong after it's already printed, just as one example, and perfect registration every time. And that's been a kind of the sizzle of the main draw initially for this. Of course, there's a lot of that being done, and we believe there's a lot of people that would like to move that process to digital that aren't doing it digital today or doing it in a 2 or 3 step process. Then there's the security side, like you mentioned, right? So what's unique with our partnership with Kurz and Scribos is that in addition to varying the data, which all of the digital platforms can do and workflows can do, but we're also putting variable metal in there as well too. So we're assigning different data, different metal structures to be used for assuring that it's an original and not counterfeit. And also then we're printing very, very small images as like a sub layer underneath that. And according to the Kurz, Scribos people, not just us, but they say, really, this is something that can only be done with toner and not with inkjet. It's one of the differences between the technologies. So we've created this kind of dual layer, unique layer of security that I don't think is really available, certainly not in any single pass type of an operation. And we think brands are going to be excited about that. It's one of those things, Ashley, I think a lot of people want to do it, but when they hear about the complexity or they see the cost to do it, they shy away and say, maybe I don't have to do it. If we can enable our customers to provide that in a simpler process at a lower cost, then we think the market should expand. And of course, I think that would be good for print in general as well too.
Right, right, yeah. I want to go back to something you mentioned, with the single pass and perfect registration every time, and how that kind of plays in with this idea of, we as an industry should be thinking more about the sustainability of our printing processes and that lower waste and waste reduction. And so what role does sustainability play in all of this, and how label and package printing operations need to be thinking about it with the technology that they choose going forward?
Yeah, good question. And so I think most of us know this, but that in Europe, of course, it's a much more regulated, required issue. And whether it's from the buy side or the government side, I think that there's more of a collaboration to get to the point where there's the sustainability issues are more of a requirement than an option. So in one sense, we're fortunate our manufacturing of our technology is in Europe. So we've really adhered to that, as it's still probably our, by a small amount, our largest market. And so we, of course, want to be in the middle of that. Xeikon's always been a part of that. So everything we do is really aimed at sustainable print wherever we can. So now in the US, as we know here, the regulations and the application of it, and then even just how the manufacturing companies are making decisions. Do I need to do this or not? Maybe I'll wait until I have to, as opposed to when I should. It's not at the level as it is in Europe, but I sense it's slowly crawling towards that right now, because it seems that every week or once a month, we're getting some type of request where people are telling us this is going to be a requirement for us, right? So that can range from what we're doing with Kurz, for example, because that's all food safe, et cetera, and has all of the sustainable qualities that we had before, where, of course, standard hot stamping did not have that. And then also with our Titan toner, something we haven't talked about yet, but what we're showing at Printing United is our TX500 using Titan toner, and that toner gives us, and thus gives our customers, the strength and the durability of a UV inkjet, but without the sustainable issues, right, that UV inkjet has. So it still has all the food safety and no VOCs, no PFAs, et cetera, in our toner, but it's also durable, doesn't require coating, doesn't require laminating. So that's allowed us to start to print on paper-based flexible packaging as opposed to film. This is definitely something that there's a demand out there for, and there's certainly a strong interest. So we'll start addressing that here in North America now. In fact, funny enough, coincidentally, we just printed the first samples that we're going to be bringing to Printing United yesterday.
Oh,
and when
wow,
I say
okay.
samples, I should say we had them pouched. We're going to be printing them live at Printing United, but we're not going to be pouching in the booth. But we're making pouches to bring as samples. So we partner with Sun Center. They're also located in the Chicago area in the US. So we print, we bring some rolls over there, and pouches were started coming off the line yesterday, paper-based. So we're excited about that because we feel like the Titan is a real enabler for that technology. And I think when you look at the growth in flexible packaging and pouches, and then add to that the ability to do that on paper for many of the applications, we think that could be a game changer. It's definitely a growth accelerator.
Right. Yeah, that's really exciting. And especially I'm sure from, the brand side, and that demand to have more sustainable options in packaging. I think that's great. So are there any, would you say there are any challenges or a learning curve with, integrating paper-based packaging into your operation, if that's something new that, that a PSP wants to do?
There's always some challenges. And funny enough, if you think about it, you have a variety of technologies that are all developed separately from each other, right? You've got the print side of it, you've got the media side of it, whether it's paper or film-based, and then, like in the case of pouches, there's companies who develop the zippers, right? For the pouches, and the tear off, like Freshlock. And initially, nobody coordinated together, right, as like a consortium to work it out. Now, of course, we are, right? Because we see, if we could do this at a little different temperature, or this was more durable, or this was that, it could improve it. And of course, we get that feedback from our customers. So I think if you are one of the earlier entries into digital pouch, flexible packaging, bags, some of these more unique applications, I think you have to be prepared. You have to be a bit of that type of entrepreneur that says, I can identify about 90 something percent of it, but I might, in my creativity, bump into something that's going to require a little work. So and that's the way it's been in digital printing for 25 years, right? So we're in the case of some of these newer areas in flexible packaging is a good example. Most of it is worked out, but it's not all worked out together. So sometimes there's a few things we have to work on, but the main thing is the customers, the producers are really interested in getting it done, Ashley, right? That's the most important thing, right? And so when they want to, then they'll have 2 or 3 providers that will work diligently to make it happen. And so, yeah, we find ourselves in those types of conversations for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you for that. So, I wonder if we could talk maybe about, you know, and I do want to move into, you know, heat transfer. I think that's an important topic that we'll get into. But staying on, you know, the label and packaging side of things, how important do you think it is to invest in digital printing technology when entering the label and package printing market?
Yeah, it's a great question because you still, of course, still the majority of things that are printed for labels are high volume, static, cost sensitive, et cetera. And so Flexo still has a big role, just like Offset does in commercial printing. But I don't, unless you really specialize in that, there's somebody who could say, I'm not interested in any digital, on whether it's commercial or LNP. But then you've really got to focus in your area. I feel that you're a bit limited in what your offering can be to your customers. And of course, you have to drive for low cost provider, high levels of efficiency and things like that. Nothing wrong with that, but it's definitely a lane that is rigid. But if you're strong in there, then I think you can be successful. If that's not the case, if you like to have a different types of customer bases, if you like to get wallet share from your customers, meaning different products that they buy, so they don't have to seek different print source providers, then digital is really a requirement, right? It's not the future. It's now. And a lot of it has been built from the recent past, for sure. That certain capabilities can really only be done in digital, right? Whether it's variable, whether it's short run, whether it's some type of digital embellishments, things like that. So if you want to play outside of one lane of print, and that includes label and packaging, digital, it has to be a part of that. And if you want to grow and expand outside of your existing market applications, maybe keep a customer that's a challenge to keep, even if you have a great Flexo operation. But if 10% of what they're looking for is digital and they have to shop that somewhere else, well, then your Flexo business is also at risk at that point, right? So we think it's a critical, almost mandatory thing for someone to factor in going forward, because one of the other things is, who knows what kind of market changes are ahead of us, right? Who could have predicted 2020? Who could have predicted some of the other things that have come across in, whether it's direct mail or label manufacturing or carton manufacturing? There's been a lot of unpredictable changes. I think digital puts you in a good spot where you can be flexible and adapt to the changes that their customers really are experiencing.
Right. Right. And it's important not to get left behind, when it comes to technology. So yeah, that's well said. So let's talk a little bit about digital heat transfer. I know that Xeikon has some stuff that you're going to be showing at at Expo. So can you talk about it right now? Digital heat transfer, and why for the promotional industrial spaces, why this is a game changer?
Sure. And so it's an interesting segment and topic to talk about, because it's kind of been around for a while. And you mentioned it, Ashley, that there's really 2 sides of it. There's the industrial side, which would be like pails and buckets and other things like that. And then you have the promotional side, which would be pens and mugs and tchotchkes, right? A lot of people like to call them, right? Giveaway promotional products. So the promotional products, particularly in the case of pens and mugs, it's been done with digital print. We've had several customers doing it for years, but it seems like it's been relegated. It had been relegated to like a small segment of it. Most of those products traditionally were manufactured using screen printing or dye sublimation type of applications. And what digital heat transfer does uh, is combines all of what the required capabilities are, which is durability being number one, typically, and into a single pass process, a lot less labor. You don't have the need for ovens in almost all cases. So it's a space saver, it's a labor saver. And going back to the statement I made earlier about who knew what was coming in 2020, books rebounded, a lot of things
Right.
rebounded, promotional products
Right.
started to
Yeah.
go crazy again, right? And so we're seeing a bigger volumes, and now people are now looking at the what can I do versus the way that I'm doing it today, which is costly and labor intensive. And of course, that's the problem that digital solves in
Mhm.
general. So we've had that going for us. We also have a partnership with Tiger Coatings, and they have a product called Digital Tattoo, and that's something that gets added to the Xeikon toner, and that makes it super durable. Uh, and so that's also an interesting situation or application for us. Then on the industrial side, that's actually kind of been the biggest growth area for us over the last couple of years. The pails and buckets, and I don't know, honestly, I can't tell you why they're so popular for like giveaways and things like that, but they are, right? Maybe more people are doing work at home and working on their own yards or whatever the case may be. I don't know the market science behind it, but we see that there's big growth. And of course, anytime there's growth in any of these print segments, digital is always just marches in behind it, right? If it's been done conventional. So most of the pails and buckets have been printed with onto some type of biflexo, onto some type of transfer material, and then use the applicators. And like anything else, anything that can be digital will be. And so we're seeing that same trend on industrial. It's just very efficient for our customers. And it's meeting the demand that their customers are providing to them. It's giving more personalization. It's allowing them to order differently. It's, all the same kind of stories of the digital value proposition. It's just going everywhere now. And so this is one of these segments that where it's really catching on. Xeikon has because of our dry toner, we really have a unique capability to do it very easily. So I think most people, particularly on the industrial space, have determined that. So we're reaping the benefits of that, and we see that as a continued growth market. It is a subsegment of a market, right? It's not like books, it's not like direct mail. But again, we're not playing in those big areas for big market share and counting the number of pages. We're trying to provide these types of solutions that our customers are thrilled with when we're able to do that for them. So yeah, our approach is a bit different, and we love markets and capabilities like heat transfer. I don't see this ending for the short term. I see a lot of growth in these areas, and these are high value products, and our customers feel they can be very unique by offering them. And so that's our value, is to try and provide them the best process for them to
Mhm.
be unique as well too.
Right. And you mentioned that this is, for PSPs or package printing companies, that this is digital is a great solution to continue offering these products, like promotional products to their customers. But I wonder about the people who want to enter this market, who haven't done it before. So, going back to that convergence trend, is it a good solution for PSPs or package printing companies who are not already doing promo to get into it and to start offering that to their customers?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ashley, and thank you for kind of bringing us back to that, because I would describe, I'll answer that question directly, but let me do a little setup that in where we see and where we're engaging with people, kind of where we're meeting them, where they're at, is three different areas. And that includes whether it's flexible packaging, heat transfer, promotional, industrial, all of these package related include and high value labels, where we're working with startup companies. And of course, most of that is around cannabis, but not all of it. So we have startup companies that we're working with are coming to us. We have existing label and packaging companies who have been, let's call it down the middle of the lane on mostly in labels, and they say, hey, I can't do this forever, and it's becoming more and more competitive, and the barrier of entry keeps going down, more people are getting in. So where can we find other higher value type products, right? So that's where the whole embellishment and quality and unique substrate stories come in, or could be flexible instead of just labels. And then we have the commercial people completely outside of label and packaging, and they're looking over this horizon and they're saying, hey, that's a growth market. I need to get into it. Where do I enter? How do I enter? And so on. So we see this trend, this convergent trends coming from three different areas. And it's if you had asked me 3 years ago about this, would we be doing business with a lot of startups, or are we? Answer would have been no, but that has absolutely changed. And it's probably at least half of the people that we're working with or existing customers already. So and that has its own challenges when you start to think about it, right? Training the people, because they're not printing companies today, right?
Right.
And
Yep.
some of them are distributors, and some of them are in one case, maybe it's the brand company themselves. So as a technology provider, you have to really look at this and say, what do I need to do? Because they don't know everything. They just know where they want to go, but they don't have the roadmap, right, to get there, the technology roadmap and all the process roadmap. So that's been a challenge, and I feel like we're really kind of caught up to that right now. Honestly, it did challenge us 2 and 3 years ago, but I feel like we've come a long way. We learn a lot from our customers. It's important to listen, and so those are the challenges in the startup aspect of it. Now, in the label and packaging aspect of it, the good thing is there's a lot of knowledge. They have a kind of a center of gravity of technology. They've got customers. These are more subsegments within the businesses that they're in. So usually what we have to do there, or their challenges, is number one, to pick which one they want to go in, right? And even that is an interesting discussion. So we have to be able to help equip our customers with market data, intelligence, selectively, without being naming people, here's what other people are doing, right? We have to help guide them. You become like a concierge in some ways, where you're guiding them to the right place to let them. I like to tell people that I speak to in these situations, I just want to give you the information you need so you can make the best decision, whatever that best decision is, right? And then hopefully we can be a part of that process to help you get there. So in the existing label and packaging market, whether they're labels or folding carton, it's more about choosing which one. Do they need equipment they don't have? Is it just printing? Can they use their existing finishing? It's similar to a lot of things we went through in commercial digital 5 and 10 years ago. It's very similar, the concept of it. And then you have this whole third area of people coming from the outside into label and packaging. So I would put that, I would subsegment that into, you've got true entry level, where people they're not real big, they know a little, they have maybe one or two customers that are asking them, will you please print labels for me so I don't have to buy from someone else? So they really want an entry level. They just want to put a toe in the water, and as opposed to jumping in. And that includes their people, that includes the size of the investment and the knowledge that they have within the company. So there are definitely good entry level products for commercial printers to do that. That's not really where we play, not primarily, right? We usually catch people either coming up from that for their second round, or someone who's got a bigger opportunity within their client base, and they can really move into this, and they're willing to take, maybe they have a little more financial wherewithal or resource wherewithal, that they can add a little more risk to their investment with the opportunity to grow into it. That's the most common one that we're working with on the commercial side. There's obviously a lot of challenges when it comes to that, because you have to work not just with their manufacturing and operations people, but with their sales team. You have to help them identify where their targets are and what the subtleties are on what they sell versus what other people sell, and help them identify what their operational costs are going to be. To me, it's our customers who develop the true return on investment, but we want to equip them with what their total cost of operation and what their operational expense will be so that they can make a good ROI decision. The interesting thing in that side of the business, Ashley, is I think it's happening literally every day at this point. I really think so. And I'm not saying we see them all every day because I think it's everywhere. So it's really exciting. That's what we love about Printing United, because every year people walk into our booth and ask these questions thus far. Every time, right?
Yeah.
So without a doubt, and I think last year there was maybe 40% when we got back and analyzed who came to our booth and who were leads and all of that. I think 40% was on label and packaging, and nobody expected that.
Right.
Nobody expected that,
Incredible,
right?
yeah.
And it was a good surprise for us.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we love, that's what we love about Printing United, because we feel like that's the audience, that's where people are thinking about doing that, that's where they're going. So of course, if I may, I want to invite any of the listeners, of course, come to Xeikon, hear our story. And we have the different technologies. We have UV inkjet, we have our regular dry toner, we have the Titan toner. We print on flexible, we print on lamination. We do a lot of unique things that others do. So just include us in your journey is what I would suggest to find out. And of course, we'd love to have a conversation with all of your customers and all of the commercial people who are looking to enter the label and packaging market.
Perfect. And I will, in the description of the podcast, for listeners who want to take Mark up on his offer, I'll include Xeikon's booth information in the description so they can head right over there when they get to Las Vegas. So
Great. Thank you, Ashley. Me remembering a booth number is close to impossible. So
don't worry, I got you there. So one final thing, you mentioned Xeikon's story, and listeners being able to come and kind of talk through that, with you and finding out your journey. I'm wondering if you can share some of your customers' stories. So can you share any success stories of printing companies that have expanded their services with Xeikon solutions?
Yeah, so we have kind of like what I was saying before, there's some different categories. So there's a couple of let's call it, they're not startup companies, but they're starting up this aspect of their business, right? So it is convergence, but it's really more in these cases, the ones I'll start with are more like an expansion. One of them is a company called Bottle Coatings. They're based in California, and they do unique things primarily for cosmetics, health and beauty aids, and they also have a very, very strong, like a European company, it has to meet all of the sustainability requirements. And it's not just because they're in California. These owners, they really have a very strong commitment to this. So when they found out about what we can do in heat transfer and all of that, we've been able to work with them, and they purchased our press, and they're starting out using it for, I think it's nail polish. So instead of things having to be screen printed on the nail polish bottles, and which of course is slow, costly, hard to do short runs, hard to do commercialized prototypes, things like that. We're giving them the full digital story capability that they weren't aware of. They're just really thrilled about it. As a matter of fact, the two owner partners will be in our booth, and they'll be doing some presentations that we're doing in our Xeikon Cafe area, and they'll be there to answer questions from customers, because we can't really you can't really demonstrate how heat transfer works at a printing, like at Printing United, showing it there. And printing onto transfer material is not nearly as elegant as printing like a beautiful label or a pouch. So they'll be there with samples, and I think that's really exciting. It's an exciting story. We just finished the interview with them that will come out on video and social media sometime between now and Printing United. So this is one that's really, has kind of all of us excited, and it's a great story, and they tell it a lot better than I do. So I invite you and everyone to come over and hear their story as well too. And the other thing I really love about these guys is, sometimes you have people understandably say, hey, I feel like I figured this out and I don't want to give my competition an edge. As Xeikon, we face that a lot, but we put a lot of effort into how we tell their stories now publicly for them, and so we're getting more people to kind of step up to the microphone. But these guys said, Mark, we believe in full adoption. And that's the best way to be for the market to grow, and then we can grow with it. And if we're a leader and there's full adoption in the market, then it's going to be a much bigger market, and we're fine with that. And we'll capture our business within that. That's what they believe, and that's good. It was very refreshing to hear, right? So yeah, so these guys are from Bottle Coatings. They're very much interested to kind of tell the story to the world. They would like to see more and more people do that, particularly around the sustainability issue. And then there's another example, a company in Florida. Their name is Flexiform Packaging. And they had a small business in packaging, but they saw the cannabis trend and they just jumped on it. And these are people that I admire them for their ability to understand that there's kind of like what we were talking about before. Not everything is sorted out, and we'll work with you to sort it out. And we've done that together, and they're just off to such a fast start in that marketplace. They're constantly looking for more sustainable materials to print on. Of course, they're very much interested in paper as they enter the food market. So they're already moving away from cannabis and expanding into other applications as well too. So that's exciting for us to see. We help somebody get started, so to speak, and then now they're starting to branch out using our technology. And so that's very exciting. In fact, there'll be a press release going out this week about them. We'll be bombarding everybody, by the way, in these coming 3 or 4 weeks with all of these stories. So
Right. Great.
those are two really exciting examples. I'll give you a couple of different ones, more like what you're asking me about. There's a customer of ours called Lake Graphics, and they're in the Cleveland, Ohio area. And they started primarily as a sign and commercial printer. But when they were able to expand into the label market, their owner told me the other day when I was there, it's now 65% of his revenue, right? So
Wow.
this goes from expanding to dominant, right?
Right.
Over a
Yeah.
period of time. And that, of course, that's very exciting to see. And his story is the same thing, now expanding into heat transfer, now starting to look at what can we get into flexible packaging? If we do, which segments should we pursue and things like that. So those are to me some of the really exciting stories, not just people that are aiming to get there, but people that are doing it and then they're expanding it from their first step to the second step very quickly. And so that's exciting for us. That's a couple of good stories I think that I think should relate to a lot of the people in the marketplace. We have other Lake Graphics, same kind of stories where people have moved from commercial into label. And of course, there are many people just aiming at cannabis right now all around the country, right? So it's a lot, honestly, to keep up with because a lot of it is educational, a lot of it is training, and then there's the risk from the all sides at the buyer level of is this how long is this going to be going on? How big is it going to be? Will my state change? Will our state allow us to start doing it here, right? You have a lot of issues that go outside of just what the print technology is. So we
Right.
love being in those kind of situations because we feel the opportunities are endless. We do our best to help our customers be successful. That's always mission number one.
Yep. And thank you so much for sharing the stories. And I will make sure to come by your booth to hear from your customer that you mentioned in the beginning. And it reminds me of that saying, "A rising tide lifts all boats," because saying like they want to be able to share their story because they know it would be good for the industry. And
Yes.
we want to see the further success of our industry. So yeah, no, that's great. And thank you so much for sharing those stories.
Well, thank you, Ashley. I appreciate it, and thank you for the opportunity to do so. And yes, I look forward to seeing you at the show, and we're looking forward to Printing United this year. It's very excited. We have our entire company is excited about it from top to bottom, so we're looking forward to being there.
So Mark, thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you at the expo.
Great. Thank you, Ashley.
I will include additional information in the description below the podcast, so make sure to check that out, including a link to register for Printing United Expo if you haven't already. I want to thank Mark for joining me on today's episode, and of course, I want to thank you, our listeners. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Impressions Exchange podcast.